a scene from the fantasy adventure film The Shadow, our hero approaches a mystical palace high in the Himalayas. Or does he? Actually, the actor never set foot in the Himalayas. He performed his role in a Hollywood studio. In fact, the hut and the entire foreground were also shot separately and added to the scene. And the palace itself was constructed far from the slopes of the mighty Himalayas. This is actually a tabletop miniature, carefully crafted and photographed by the wizards of special effects.
You call that a temple?
Welcome to the incredible world of big shots, those sweeping panoramas that provide the landscape for some of Hollywood's most unforgettable moments.
Where did that come from?
Coming up, we'll visit the cutting-edge studios of Matt World Digital. We'll see how beautifully rendered paintings, intricate miniatures, mechanized models, and computer images are cleverly combined to create show-stopping vistas for such movies as The Shadow.
Hey, Bobby, what the hell are you doing?
And we'll journey back to the golden age of Hollywood, when effects pioneers set old Chicago ablaze and envisioned an abandoned Washington, D.C. for Logan's Run. Join us as we explore big screen visions born from artists' imaginations and brought to life with blood, sweat, and acrylic paint. Next on Movie Magic. It's the 1930s in New York City. Lamont Cranston, alias The Shadow, uses his occult powers to battle villains in a crime-filled world.
You don't scare me!
To create this period adventure, the filmmakers relied on movie magic. Most of The Shadow was shot on the back lot of Universal Studios in Hollywood. Elaborate sets and vintage cars were used to place star Alec Baldwin in a stylized Depression-era Manhattan.
Did I say something?
But when the script called for a big screen vista, director Russell Mulcahy called on special effects artists to deliver the shot.
I love them because they allow you to make high fantasy, high adventure, high concept plausible, and the audience just go for a wonderful ride into a netherworld.
One of the film's pivotal scenes takes place 102 stories up on an observation deck of the Empire State Building. Mulcahy wanted an angle that would be impossible to shoot even from a helicopter.
Get me down from here! Get me down!
Special effects producer Allison Savage was responsible for delivering the shot.
So what you have to do is, of course, evaluate what can be done in the script, live action, what can't be done, and then figure out a way to do it. As an effects supervisor and producer, there are certain facilities that jump out for specific things. And Matt World, they are very, very good at integrating the realistic quality with the fantasy world, and there's really very few people that are as good as they are at that.
At Matt World Digital, the effects facility Savage chose to create the Empire State Building shot, veteran effects artist Chris Evans visually interprets the director's vision in a full-color rendering called a matte painting.
Matte paintings generally add a greater sense of dimension and scope to films, because very rarely do films get to the incredible locations they want to. In a shot like the one I did of the Empire State Building, it was almost an engineering feat where I had to essentially remake the face of the Empire State Building from this imaginary point of view.
The matte painting is only one element of this complex shot. Since the distant background is a street at the base of the building, the Matt World team must construct it in miniature.
The road's looking good, but we need to get some of the oil streaks that go down the middle of lanes.
The automobiles are actually children's toys painted in car colors of the 30s. These models are attached to cables underneath the miniature street. A small motor pulls the cable, moving the tiny traffic down their lanes.
Okay, Mark, running this again.
A computer is used to control the cars, keeping them in a perfectly synchronized, pre-programmed traffic pattern.
I'm going to be running this back and forth, Mark. So... Ready? Okay, rolling. Of course, we are dealing with artwork that's painted, and what we're trying to do is introduce the movement that you would expect to see if you were really looking at a scene that existed in reality.
Craig Barron, co-founder of Matt World, is the director of photography responsible for getting this shot on film.
If you look into the streets of New York, you would expect to see the cars moving. It's very difficult to go out and photograph, say, 24 period cars from that particular angle and with the correct lighting that would fit in with our scene. So we have to recreate that in miniature. You ready for this?
Behind the matte painting, a piece of plastic serves as a screen for a process called rear projection. A film projector casts previously shot footage of extras onto the screen, making it appear as if they are actually walking on the building's observation deck.
It seems to be lining up very nicely here. Matte painting is difficult, and it is getting more difficult all the time because audiences are getting more and more sophisticated. We're constantly trying to push the envelope and make these things look as realistic as possible.
On screen, all of the pieces come together perfectly, and a dramatic scene atop the Empire State Building is brought to life for The Shadow. Coming up, we'll meet the legendary effects wizard who turned the Dallas Waterworks into a city of the future for Logan's Run. In the heyday of Hollywood, the 1930s, the major film studios released more than 500 movies a year to the depression-weary public. But this studio system was a veritable factory. Most films were shot quickly on huge indoor sound stages and back lots.
In the early days of Hollywood, it was the fashion to photograph an entire film within the walls of the studio. And so the special effects or visual artist was called upon to produce backgrounds, to produce the big shot, the panoramic view that would introduce a sequence.
Dr. Raymond Fielding is Dean of the Film School at Florida State University. His book, The Technique of Special Effects Cinematography, has been a definitive text on visual effects for more than 30 years.
A ship foundering at sea, ancient Rome, Pompeii under the explosion of a volcano. How could we possibly go back in time and photograph these? How could we possibly afford the expense of sinking a real ship at sea? For all of these reasons, the work of the visual effects magician is crucial. One thinks of the work of Fred Sursin, who was a Czechoslovakian-born filmmaker who was hired by William Fox back in the silent days of filmmaking around 1918 or so, and who rose through the ranks over the years to become head of all special effects at 20th Century Fox, and who during the 1930s produced exquisite, simply marvelous work. The Rains Came and Suez, and one of my favorites, a film called In Old Chicago.
Filmed on the Fox lot during the summer of 1937, In Old Chicago features a stunning recreation of the Great Chicago Fire of 1871. This massive conflagration was the work of Fred Sursin and his effects team.
The most spectacular shot in the sequence is that long shot of Chicagoans heading for the water with the buildings burning behind. He not only achieved this spectacularly, but saved 20th Century Fox a good deal of money by using the same group of extras, perhaps about 200 of them, over and over in different parts of the image. First, he photographed them on the left-hand side of the screen. Then he photographed them on the right side of the screen, the same extras, but performing somewhat different movements. And finally, he shot them again in the middle of the screen, this time with horses and wagons.
When the scene is put together with miniature buildings and fire elements, the original group of extras has been multiplied threefold, and the result is a heart-pounding finale. Old Chicago seems to expire in flames right before our eyes. Fred Serson received the ultimate compliment for his artistry when, in 1939, his work on The Rains Came was recognized with an Academy Award. This was the very first Oscar ever awarded for Best Special Effects. Panoramic shots are important for historical tales, but they are equally necessary when the story takes place in the distant future. In 1976, film audiences were taken to a domed city where nobody lived beyond the age of 30. Logan's Run tells the story of two people, played by Michael York and Jenny Agutter, who escape this closed society and journey out into the real world. Here they discover a deserted Washington, D.C.
What do you suppose happened to all the people?
I must have left here a long time ago.
This vision of the abandoned capital would not have been possible without the talents of one of Hollywood's most renowned effects artists.
You have a feel for painting that way. Some people do watercolors real good, some are great portrait painters, but in matte shots, I could tell just by painting and knowing that that'll work and that might not work.
Matthew Jurisic, who began creating breathtaking establishing shots in 1950, has contributed to such classics as Ben-Hur, Mutiny on the Bounty, North by Northwest, and The Towering Inferno. Jurisic has imagined vistas that push the boundaries of cinematic storytelling. For Logan's Run, he had to visualize the U.S. Capitol's most familiar landmarks in future decay. Most of the live action was shot on the old MGM backlot in Culver City, California. After the actors were photographed, Matthew painted the environment around them. He chose overgrown ivy as a visual representation of the years of neglect.
To get life into the painting, you have to be kind of loose with your painting technique, but still controlled, impressionistic in a sense. The brushstrokes are almost evident. If I painted that realistically, it would have looked just like a slick painting. Whereas all this just wiggly stuff and everything just tied together. That's why when you paint, you have to stand up so you can back away. What you're doing is you're looking with the lens of the camera, because that's what you're painting from that distance.
One of Matthew's favorite shots in Logan's Run depicts the abandoned Lincoln Memorial. York and Agutter were shot on an empty soundstage, and Jurisic had to paint an imaginary view looking down on them from behind Lincoln's shoulder.
I've never seen a face like that before. That must be the look of being old.
Matthew Jurisic brought his imaginative artistry to many other science fiction films. He helped the mothership land in Close Encounters of the Third Kind and visualized an urban nightmare for Blade Runner. But for Logan's Run, he turned a Hollywood backlot into a 21st century Washington, D.C. This stands as one of Jurisic's career highlights, for which he was honored with an Academy Award. Coming up next, effects artists transport the shadow to a mystical palace in Tibet. Today, the techniques of the visual effects pioneers are still being used to make panoramic establishing shots. Matte World Digital has created many landscapes that help make fantastic stories believable. Jerusalem in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. The Venezuelan rainforest in Arachnophobia. A burned-out estate in Ireland in Far and Away. For a scene in the fantasy thriller The Shadow, the filmmakers wanted to create a shot of a palace high in the mountains of Tibet. It would have been far too expensive to build and photograph a full-size set in the Himalayas. Instead, the actors playing peasants were actually shot in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. The rest of the shot was created at Matte World. First, visual effects supervisor Michael Pangrazio oversees the construction of a miniature Tibetan palace. This model will not appear in the film. It will be the subject for a matte painting that will turn the Sierra Nevadas into the Himalayas.
I would say the magic of matte painting is purely the illusion of it. It's fooling the audience. It's being able to bring the skill, the synthesis of art and science, the technical and the artistic together to be able to create something that could not possibly be created any other way.
Pangrazio renders the palace on tempered glass, which offers an extremely even surface. The paint is cell vinyl, which is generally used for cartoon animation. Cell vinyl adheres well to the glass surface and is thick and opaque, so it doesn't show brush strokes.
You have to have a special attitude to be able to be successful as a matte artist. You have to be willing to not fall in love with your work. A lot of artists express themselves through their artwork. This is not an expression. This is a discipline. Matte artist has to change the work constantly. You can't fall in love with it. You can't take a personal offense at it. So I think there's very few of us because you have to compromise a lot.
Once the painting is approved by the director, it is combined with the live-action footage. The final shot makes us believe that the Shadow's Alec Baldwin really is inside an exotic palace in the Himalayas.
Let me go. Shoot through him.
Not every panoramic effect involves a matte painting. When the Shadow visits an ageless mystic called the Tukla, the artists at Matte World had to create a multi-layered shot that would involve several different effects disciplines. The first step is a drawing that defines exactly what the director is after. Next, renowned model maker Greg Jean is brought in to design and build a tabletop miniature landscape and palace.
Moving closer. Hey, Dave, we need to glue this little piece on it. It fell off when we were trying to pack it.
Okay. It's a pretty collaborative effort working with Craig and the guys at Matte World. We'd get drawings from them. We'd send back ideas of how things looked. We'd send them samples of textures, and we'd do like sections of the model, send it back up. They'd send it back with corrections and changes, and finally got it all together that way.
Greg and his crew construct 14 buildings for this single shot. The models are built to 50th scale. Model railroad Spanish tiles are used for some of the roofs, and all of the buildings are made to be shipped in sections to Matte World. Here, they will be reassembled for filming.
We basically create scenes that a normal film crew couldn't achieve any other way. So what we can do is add a tremendous amount of scope and dynamic vision to a film that perhaps would have to be photographed only on set.
While miniatures are often filmed indoors, Craig Barron has decided to shoot this model outside in order to get the real sky and clouds in the background. This will enhance its realism. Large screens called scrims, made of transparent gauzy material, the same cloth used for bridal veils, are placed between the foreground miniatures and the background mountains. This will simulate the haze visible in a real panoramic scene. This haze effect adds to the illusion of distance in a miniature set. After being assembled, the palace is touched up with gold animation paint. Powdered tempera paint substitutes for Tibetan soil. Finally, a mineral oil smoker called an ajiba is brought in to deliver eerie mist on cue as the camera rolls. After the palace is photographed, a full-size fire element is double exposed onto the same piece of film.
Turn it up a little bit.
This is being added to the interior of the miniature peasant hut for additional realism.
From camera, you can actually see through the flames here, so we might want to break up the rocks a little bit.
Once completed, the individual film elements are scanned into a computer.
So can you put the,
Computer artist
foreground
Paul
that's
Rivera
behind the foreground?
adjusts the size, color, and contrast of these elements. He combines them with footage of Alec Baldwin's double by replacing the green background with the palace.
A lot of give depth. That's great.
When The Shadow reaches movie theaters, the weeks of detail work by dozens of talented artists will occupy mere seconds of screen time.
You call that a temple? No. There.
It's a tremendous effort for a very short scene.
The clouded mind sees nothing.
But without an establishing shot, we would never get to see the ornate palace within which so much action transpires. For that sense of place, we owe a debt of gratitude to the effects wizards. Theirs is a job that isn't taken lightly.
I feel responsible that everything that I do is the best that I can do it. That is very important to me. No matter how tired you are, no matter how long it's dragging on or how frustrating, that you remain enthusiastic enough to complete it in the best way you possibly can.
You can't do it from... It's a very exciting thing when you go to the movie theater and you're sitting in an audience. When your shot comes up, sometimes you can feel a hush or a gasp from the audience. It's very exciting to get that feedback and know that your shot has worked both as an illusion and as a dramatic story point.
It's very important, I think, for an audience to get the vista first. You know, at some point, as you're telling a story, to come back and go, bang, this is where this particular piece of the story is going to be told. Otherwise, I think they start feeling cheated. You know? I think they need the scope.
As long as filmmakers want to turn small sets into dazzling vistas, as long as big shots are required for the silver screen, Hollywood will continue to have its landscapes tended by the wizards of special effects, who create stunning views with hard work, skill, and a little movie magic.
Coming up next on the Discovery Channel, computers and sophisticated smart weapons change the face of war on the No Zone. Then swim and ski at the same resort at the same time on Beyond 2000. Explore your world.